Chapter 3. The Meeting of Lifelong Partners. Everyone stared at the Pokemon that had come out of the Pokeball. They certainly were not expecting a Pikachu to come out. In turn, Pikachu stared uncertainly at everyone around it. It didn't quite know what to make of the situation. What it did know was one raven-haired boy was standing a little too close for its liking though. Ash was the first one to give any real reaction, and his face broke out into a wide grin. He then leaned forward to get a little closer. "Hello, Pikachu. My name is Ash Ketchum. I heard that you had bad experiences with people and you distrust them. But I promise you, I'm not like that. I'm going to treat you the way you deserve to be treated. Will you give me a chance?" Pikachu continued to stare at Ash. It didn't believe this kid for 1 second. It's heard that one before. It heard how people had said they would be nice to it, only to abuse it the first chance they got it. Pikachu then promptly turned its back on Ash with a low-toned "Ch," to emphasize that it didn't want anything to do with him. Gary Oak then gave a smirk as he crossed his arms. "What's the matter, Ashy boy? Can't you even make your first Pokemon trust you? I guess I can say that's to be expected. I don't know what Gramps was thinking trying to give you a Pikachu like that." Leaf and Serena then glared at Gary. "Ugh, Gary, you can be such a jerk sometimes. Let's see you try to become friends with it," Leaf defended. Gary shrugged. "I'm only saying that Pikachu isn't for some run-of-the-mill rookie like Ash. You know he'll be miserable with that thing." Ash decided he would try again. "Don't listen to Gary, Pikachu. I personally think you're great, and that you're the best of all. I couldn't be happier to receive you as my first Pokemon." Ash then reached out to try to give Pikachu a reassuring touch on its back. However, it proved to be a huge mistake. "Wait, Ash, be careful or..." Professor Oak tried to warn, but it was too late. As soon as Pikachu felt Ash's hand against it, it let out a loud cry and gave off a powerful thundershock. The bolt engulfed Ash in electricity and caused the other people and Pokemon to hit the floor in an attempt to block the attack. "Wow, that was a powerful thundershock," Ash mumbled, a little dazed once Pikachu finished. "Ash, are you okay?" Serena asked worriedly as she and everyone else stood up again. "Yeah, I think so," Ash muttered. "Jeez, Ash, watch what you're doing. That Pikachu is a danger to everyone. You need to get that thing back into its Pokeball before something worse happens," Gary exclaimed with an angry look on his face. "I'm afraid I have to agree with Gary on this one, Ash. Let me put Pikachu back into its Pokeball, and I can try and find another Pokemon for you," Professor Oak said as he picked up Pikachu's Pokeball. Pikachu looked at the ball fearfully. It hated being inside Pokeballs. It just received freedom, and it was already going back in? "No. Wait, Professor. It's fine." Ash stepped in before he then turned to Pikachu. "Sorry about that, Pikachu. I shouldn't have reached out and startled you like that. That was my fault. I'll try to be more careful from now on. Do you forgive me?" That got Pikachu's attention. It was expecting Ash to hit it, or at least be angry and yell at it for shocking him. But he was doing just the opposite. He wasn't bothered by it at all, and was even apologizing to it and wanted its forgiveness. Maybe this human wasn't as bad as it originally thought. Pikachu still didn't trust Ash, but it decided to give him a break. It turned around to face Ash and nodded its head, signaling it at least forgave him. "That's great! Thanks, Pikachu!" Ash replied gratefully before he continued. "Maybe we could start over. I really would like to be the trainer and friend to a great Pokemon like you. Just give me 1 day. If you decide you don't want anything to do with me after that, you can go, and I won't try to stop you. What do you say? Want to give this partnership a chance?" Ash then extended his hand to Pikachu in a gesture of friendship, but Pikachu hesitated. Surely Ash didn't expect it to be buddies with him just because he apologized and was forgiven. On the other hand, he did seem genuine, and said that it could leave after a day with no questions asked if it didn't like him. After giving it some thought, Pikachu decided it could give Ash a single chance. It didn't accept Ash's hand, but it still nodded its head. Pikachu then curled its hands into fists and sparked its cheeks, letting Ash know that it still had its guard up. Taking the hint, Ash decided Pikachu still wasn't ready for him to be too close to it yet, unless he wanted to get another Thundershock. But that didn't stop Ash from grinning broadly. Thanks, Pikachu. I understand. I won't try to touch you anymore until you're ready. In the meantime, would you please get inside the Pokeball? I want to take you to my house so I can introduce you to my mom, Ash requested. Pikachu! Pikachu cried while it frantically shook its head and waved its arms back and forth. It couldn't stand being in Pokeballs, and it would be darned if this kid thought he could get it to go back inside of one. Oh, you don't like Pokeballs, Pikachu? Ash asked in concern. Pikachu shook its head again. It then crouched down in a tight ball and closed its eyes, letting Ash know that it thought Pokeballs were cramped and dark, which scared it. If that's the case, Pikachu, then you don't have to go in. You can just stay outside and walk beside me. How does that sound? Ash amended and gave Pikachu a smile. Pikachu was actually impressed. Ash was not even making it get into a Pokeball. This kid was just full of surprises. Maybe it wasn't going to be so bad after all. Are you kidding me? Ash, if you can't get that thing to get inside the Pokeball, then it's going to walk all over you. Keep that up, and pretty soon it will be the Pikachu that's training you, Gary said, glaring at Ash. Now, Gary, that remark was uncalled for. Professor Oak scolded before he turned to Ash. I do agree with what Gary said on one point, however. Are you sure having Pikachu outside the Pokeball is a good idea? If Pikachu doesn't want to be in a Pokeball, then it doesn't have to, Ash replied firmly. Professor Oak studied Ash carefully. He had his doubts, but perhaps giving Ash this Pikachu was the right move after all. He knew how much Ash cared for Pokemon, and had always sensed something special in the boy. He had no doubt that these two would accomplish many great things together. Serena was thinking likewise. She was super lucky that she got a Pokemon as friendly as Charla. If she had wound up with Pikachu, she didn't think she could handle it. Ash, on the other hand, was so forgiving and never gave up. Those were just a couple of the many qualities that she liked about him. Well, Ash, I will trust your judgment. Professor Oak relented before he turned towards the table and pushed another button on it. I would like to go ahead and give you all your Pokedexes now. The platform that had Pikachu's Pokeball on it lowered back into the table. It was soon replaced as a different platform rose out. On it were 4 red rectangular devices about the size of a calculator with many different buttons and a small screen. Professor Oak picked up the machines and handed one to each of the 4 trainers. These devices are your Pokedexes. They will be used to record and give you any information about the Pokemon you may encounter on your journey. As soon as you see one you haven't come across yet, make sure to open up your Pokedex to get its information. I have spent almost my whole adult life studying Pokemon, but I'm getting on in years and can't do field research like I used to. If you manage to fill up the Pokedex with every known Pokemon, I will have a special award for you. The 4 kids nodded, signifying they understood, especially Leaf. Hey, Gramps, if we're done here, I'd like to go ahead and start my journey. My cheerleaders are waiting in the car. Gary spoke up, returning Squirtle to its Pokeball. Wait a second, Gary. You have cheerleaders? Ash exclaimed. Of course, Ash. They're gonna follow me around and see what a real trainer from Pallet is like. Not that I would expect you to have any fans, except for those 2. Gary sneered and gestured to Leaf and Serena with his thumb, causing them both to blush. Seeing Ash's angry expression, Gary's sneer turned into a genuine smile. Hey, I was just kidding, Ashy boy. Despite the things I said, I really do wish you luck in your journey, in training that Pikachu. Just at least try to keep up with me, he said. Yeah, thanks, Gary. You too. Ash replied, rather surprised that his biggest rival was actually wishing him luck. Gary then turned to Leaf and Serena. The same goes for you two also. Leaf, as much as you love to explore, I believe you'll have no trouble filling up that Pokedex. Serena, I expect to see amazing things from you too. You'll be a great Pokemon trainer and ready for the Pokemon League in no time. Yeah, thanks, Gary, Serena said nervously. Only her mother and Leaf knew that Serena hadn't chosen her goal yet. Sure, she liked Pokemon battles, but she still couldn't understand why so many people thought she was going to compete in the Indigo League over everything else. Gary then turned to leave. Well, I'm out of here. Hey Gramps, tell my family I said bye. I'll give them a call when I get to Viridian. Then, with a small wave, he walked out of the room. We should probably be leaving as well. I promised my mom that I would stop by before I left. Leaf suggested before she turned to Bulbasaur. Are you ready, Bulbasaur? The grass Pokemon nodded in response. It was ready for adventure just like its trainer. Yeah, I have to go to my house also, Serena spoke up. Alright, let's all walk back together. Ash suggested and then turned to Pikachu. Hey Pikachu, I'm going to introduce you to my mom. I promise you that she isn't a bad person. Are you ready? Pikachu pondered on that for just a moment. The boy seemed okay so far, so that must mean his mom can't be that bad of a person either. Pika. It replied, nodding its head. Okay, let's go. Ash said enthusiastically as he pumped his fist into the air. As the trio and their Pokemon left the room, they waved goodbye to Professor Oak. Take care of yourselves, you hear? Keep in touch. The professor called after them. We will, they answered. As they neared the exit to the lab, Ash turned to Leaf and Serena. Do you two think it's true what Gary said about having cheerleaders in a car? He questioned. He had to be bluffing. You know how cocky he can get. No 10-year-old should be able to have their own car and a personal fan club just like that, Serena answered. Once they opened the door, they were met with a whole bunch of noise and cheering. On the side of the road in front of Professor Oak's lab, they saw at least a dozen cheerleaders complete with the uniform who were chanting Gary's name again and again. There were also at least 100 fellow residents of Pallet Town in a line cheering just as hard. Beside them, parked on the side of the road, was a flashy red convertible. Gary, Gary, he's the best! Gary, Gary beats the rest! I'm sorry guys, that was really bad. They cheered as Gary passed him and got in the car. As soon as he was in, all the cheerleaders piled in behind him, which made for a really tight fit. The cheerleader that would be driving the car then turned it on and sped off down the road. Some of the people in the crowd dispersed, while others chased after the vehicle. Ash, Serena, Leaf, and their Pokemon stood dumbfounded for a moment before sweat dropped. Never mind, Serena mumbled. Hey Mom, I'm back! Ash called as he and Pikachu entered his house. I'm in the kitchen, sweetie. I'm just finishing up with the dishes, Delia answered back. Ash then knelt down so he was eye level with Pikachu. Okay, Pikachu, I promise you my mother is a good person. But if she tries to hold you, I have to ask you to save your Thundershock for me and not her. Deal? He requested. Pikachu figured that as acceptable and nodded. P, it replied. Then they walked into the kitchen just as Delia was stacking the last plate in the cabinet. She was still in her white apron and yellow rubber gloves and had her back turned to him. So what kind of Pokemon did you end up getting? Delia asked as she took off her gloves and began wiping her hands. I got the best one of them all, Mom. A Pikachu, Ash stated proudly. You got a Pikachu? I thought the starters were Charmander, Bulbasaur, or Squirtle. Ash's mom said in confusion before she turned around to face Ash and Pikachu. They are, but they were already chosen by Serena, Leaf, and Gary, since I volunteered to go last. So then, Professor Oak decided to give me this Pikachu. He told me that it had been abused in the past and trusted me to care for it and be its trainer, Ash replied. Oh, okay then. Delia replied before she then walked across the kitchen to Pikachu and knelt down to it to give it a kind smile. Hello there, Pikachu. Pikachu tilted its head to the side and stared curiously at Delia. It could already sense that this also wasn't a bad human at all. She had a very kind and caring wave around her, the same one it could feel with Ash. It finally gave a smile back at Delia. Pikachu! It responded and gave Delia a wave with one of its small arms. Aw, you're a cutie, aren't you? Delia smiled as she reached out to rub Pikachu's head. Ash watched this scene nervously. The previous incident when Pikachu was touched without permission was still fresh in his mind. He hoped Pikachu would be able to keep his promise not to shock his mom. Ash braced himself for what might be a nasty scene. But to his great relief, Pikachu didn't shock Delia when she began to rub its head. Pikachu even seemed to be enjoying it. Pikachu cooed under Delia's soft touch. Delia chuckled softly as she finished. She then stood up and faced her son. "All right, Ash, I've already got you packed up. I've got a backpack full of some things you may need for your journey," she told him as she walked out of the kitchen into the living room, her son and Pikachu following her. Once they entered the living room, Delia walked over to the couch, where a green backpack with several pockets and zippers was laying on top of it. She picked it up and turned to face Ash. "Okay, sweetie, I just want to go over some of the things I packed for you before you set out," she requested. "Sure, Mom," Ash replied. He wasn't prepared for the barrage of things his mom was about to list. "Here," she began. "I have a fresh change of clothes if your current ones get dirty. I packed a few snacks in case you get hungry. I packed a jacket in case you get cold. Here's your sleeping bag since I imagine you will be sleeping outside some nights. Here are some rubber gloves and a water keg so you can do your laundry and dishes. Here's a thermometer so you can take your temperature. I also got Tylenol, cough syrup, your toothbrush and toothpaste, a few bars of soap, and—" "Mom, okay, I get it. Thanks a lot." Ash cried as Pikachu watched curiously. Ash knew only a mom would be able to pack all those things in such a small backpack. "Well, all right, I trust you," Delia sighed. She then gazed sadly at her son. She really would miss him while he was gone. She began to tear up. "Oh, Ash, I'm going to miss you," Delia cried as she embraced her son. "I'll miss you too, Mom," Ash replied as he returned the hug. Pikachu watched the heartwarming scene with interest. These two humans were not like any it had ever met before. They really did seem caring and friendly. Despite all the bad humans it had encountered in the past, these two had shown it there are good humans after all. Ash and Delia soon let go, and stared at each other for a moment longer before Ash spoke up. "I gotta get going, Mom. I promised Leaf and Serena I would meet them at the street corner so we could say our goodbyes before leaving. Are you ready, Pikachu?" "Pika Pika," it said, nodding its head. "I understand. You wouldn't mind if I saw you off, would you?" Ash's mom asked hopefully. "Of course not, Mom. Let's go." Ash replied before he put on his backpack and walked out the door, followed by Delia and Pikachu. Ash, Delia, and Pikachu stepped outside and began walking toward the street. Ash turned around and paused. He wanted to take one last look at his home for 10 years before he began his journey. He had so many great memories here. The aroma of his mother's cooking, his cozy room, he would miss it all. "Ash?" Delia questioned, noticing her son's almost sad expression. "Nothing, Mom. I'm fine," Ash answered. He then closed his eyes and turned around, continuing on his way. As Ash, Delia, and Pikachu were approaching the street corner, they could see Serena and Leaf were already waiting for them. Leaf had brought her bike. She was clearly going to use it for quicker travel on her journey. They likewise had their mothers as well. Grace, Serena's mom, and Rose, Leaf's mom. All four waved when they caught sight of them. "It's about time you got her, Ash. Do you know how long we've been waiting?" Leaf asked playfully with her hands on her hips. "Sorry," Ash chuckled. "I just wanted to have one last look around my house before I left. I won't be here for a while after all." "Now, you aren't going to get homesick, are you? As a Pokemon trainer, you have to stay strong," Leaf said firmly. "Oh, really? As if you won't miss home," Rose interrupted her daughter. "You were crying in my arms for 3 minutes at our house just now." Leaf was almost an exact copy of her mother. The only real difference was Rose's hair was darker, and she had a different shade of brown to her eyes than Leaf's. "Mom!" Leaf cried in embarrassment, turning beet red and causing the others to laugh. "So, are we all ready to part ways?" Ash asked the group once they finished laughing. "Yeah, I think I'm good," Leaf responded. Serena wasn't ready, however. She had no idea where to even begin for this journey. She still didn't know what she wanted to do, and she was about to be away from everyone who had given her support so far. She knew if she went by herself, she would never succeed at this. She knew her mother was afraid of this happening. Perhaps if she, Ash, and Leaf traveled together, they would be able to support each other, and she could find inspiration along the way. Not to mention, she would miss her friends, particularly Ash if she was alone. "Hey, guys, Serena spoke up nervously, which grabbed their attention. What if we went on this journey together? That way, we could still be together and support each other. She hoped they would agree. That would be great, Serena! Ash exclaimed, much to her relief. He then turned to Pikachu. Hey, Pikachu, does that sound okay to you? We can have more friends so we aren't by ourselves. Pikachu! Pikachu agreed. Both Serena and Leaf seemed to be okay. It decided it could tolerate them as long as Ash was around. Oh, that's a wonderful idea! Grace added and clapped her hands together. Delia and Rose agreed. Leaf, are you in? Ash asked, turning to her. Leaf looked nervously at the ground and shuffled her feet. Actually, as fun as that sounds, I really want to do this journey by myself. I feel that if I can explore all of Kanto and go at my own pace, I can get more out of the experience. Well, you definitely are my daughter, Rose said with a smile, always being independent. Oh, that's too bad. Ash replied in a disappointed tone, but he then brightened a little. I guess it's just you and me, Serena. Serena nodded. She may not be able to travel with Leaf, but at least she will have Ash. Just she and Ash. Her crush. Traveling. Together. Serena's cheeks turned red at the thought. Serena, are you okay? Ash asked in an unsure tone, causing the others in the group to facepalm. Typical young boy response. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get going. Leaf spoke up, which drew the attention back to her. She gave her mom one last hug before having a group hug with Ash and Serena. Their parents smiled at how close they all were. Now, Serena, you better keep me up to date with how Ash is. If he treats you poorly, just let me know. I'll take care of him. Leaf said playfully with a wink. Don't worry, I will, Serena giggled. I wouldn't dream of it, Ash replied with a smile before turned back to Serena. We're gonna have a blast, aren't we? Absolutely, Serena agreed. Leaf then got on her bike. Well, I'll see you all later. Take care and keep in touch. With the final wave, she was off. Everyone continued to watch Leaf until she disappeared around a corner. Ash then turned to Serena. Hey, we should get going as well, he said. Yeah, Serena answered. She then gave one last hug to her mom. Bye, Mom. Goodbye, dear. Grace responded and leaned over to whisper in her daughter's ear. I know you'll figure out what you want to do. Thanks, Mom, Serena replied gratefully. And good luck with Ash, too. Grace whispered again before pulling away and looking at her daughter mischievously, which caused Serena to turn red again. Ash then gave Delia another hug. I'll miss you, Mom, he said. Me too. Make sure you two keep in touch with us, Delia replied as they pulled away. Don't worry, we will. Ash nodded and turned to Serena. Well, are you ready? Serena gave a nod, and Ash then shifted his attention to Pikachu. Pikachu, what about you? He asked this time. Pikachu confirmed. Now, Ash, Grace said seriously, getting his attention. I want you to make sure she stays safe. Can I trust you with that? Absolutely. I won't let you down, Mrs. Gabina, Ash nodded. Then, with a final nod to their parents and Rose, they turned around and began to walk away. Here we go, Serena thought. I'm really nervous right now. I may not know what I want at the moment, but soon I will. I can do it. I have Ash and Charla with me after all. I'll make them and my mother proud. And maybe, along the way. Serena gave a quick glance at Ash and blushed, but he was too busy looking ahead to notice. Ash had his own thoughts that were going through his mind as well. This is it. I'm going to be the very best like no one ever was. Pikachu and I will make an amazing team. Together, with it and Serena, I can overcome any obstacle. Look out, world. Ash was really pumped. He had been waiting for this day for a very long time. Now, he was going to show the world what he was made of. Nothing was going to stop him now. He was excited, he was ready, he was determined. He felt powerful. He was, don't forget to change your you-know-whats every day, honey, Delia called after him. Ash fell over in embarrassment. Chapter 4. The Route to Viridian City. Ash, Serena, and Pikachu were walking along Route 1. It had been about 2 hours since they had left Pallet Town. It had been pretty uneventful so far, with just small talk between Ash and Serena and the occasional Pika-P from Pikachu. They hadn't seen any Pokemon yet to try and capture. The casual pace they were taking left them each to their own thoughts. Pikachu was especially intrigued by its new trainer. So far, Ash had kept his promise to treat it just like a friend. The boy was truly unique for a human. He seemed to really care about Pokemon and his friends. Pikachu turned to glance at its trainer. Ash and Serena noticed and gave a grin back at the Pokemon. Yes, Pikachu could trust that Ash was indeed the kind person he made himself out to be. He was the key that would allow Pikachu to open up to humans again. Serena didn't certainly seem like a bad person either, but it was slightly wary of her. "How are you guys holding up?" Ash asked Serena and Pikachu, snapping the Pokemon out of its thoughts. "We've been walking for a while, and my feet are beginning to hurt. Can we take a short break?" Serena asked while Pikachu nodded in agreement. "Sure, this field looks like a nice place to sit down for a bit." Ash replied as he stopped and set down his backpack, the others following suit. Ash sat down and unzipped his backpack, pulling out one of the snacks his mom had packed for him, a granola bar. Serena also sat down and released Charla. It immediately went over to Pikachu and began to converse with it. "So, Serena, what made you decide to become a Pokemon trainer? You've never told me." Ash asked as he took a bite out of his granola bar. Serena sighed. She knew she couldn't hide the truth from Ash forever, so now would be a good or bad time as any. "Ash, there's something I have to tell you," Serena began. "The truth is, I don't really want to be a Pokemon trainer like you. I don't have any interest in collecting badges or entering the Pokemon League." "Really?" Ash questioned as he took another bite. "Well, that's no problem. There are a lot of people who don't want to become trainers. So which do you want to do? Coordinator, breeder, or..." "I think you misunderstood me, Ash," Serena interrupted, also getting the attention of Pikachu and Charmander. "The thing is, I don't know what I want to do." "You don't?" Ash asked, clearly surprised. "Yet you still came on a Pokemon journey?" "Yeah, I did," Serena replied and blushed in embarrassment. "Why?" Ash wondered. "It's because all of you were leaving this year. You, Leaf, and Gary. I didn't want to be by myself again. Also, I was hoping that by coming with one of you, I could figure out my goal along the way. You must think I'm pretty ridiculous, coming without a goal," Serena said gloomily as she buried her face with her hands. She was surprised to feel a comforting hand lay on her shoulder. She looked up to see Ash smiling warmly at her. "No, it's not stupid," Ash said consolingly. "Wanting to be with your friends and finding your goal is only natural. To tell you the truth, I probably would have done the same thing if I were in your position." "Really?" Serena asked. "You don't think I'm being selfish or anything?" "No," Ash replied, shaking his head. "If you don't know what to do yet, it's okay. There's some people who may take years to figure out what they want, and that's fine. I know one day you will figure out your goal, and I'll stay by you until you do. Once you figure it out, you can bet I'll be there to support you every step of the way." Serena stared up in surprise at Ash. Once again, he had proven his kindness by not being angry or confused as she suspected. He was being so understanding and supportive. "Thank you, Ash. Really," Serena said gratefully. "No problem. What are friends for?" Ash asked, giving her a thumbs up. "Heh, right. Friends," Serena said nervously and blushed. Pikachu and Charmander's sweat dropped. For as kind as Ash was, he sure was dense. To his credit, he was only 10, so it was to be expected. The two Pokemon still thought it was funny that they hadn't even known their trainers long, and even they thought it was obvious how Serena felt about Ash. "Hey, let's make a promise to stay together until the end, and always look out for each other," Ash said as he stuck out his hand. "Pikachu and Charla, are you guys in too?" "Charmander," Charla said enthusiastically as it ran forward and placed its hand on Ash's hand. Pikachu hesitated for just a little bit, but still ran forward and placed its paw on the others. Serena almost felt tears come to her eyes as she saw how supportive everyone was. All right, let's do it. She agreed as she placed her hand on all the others. Then it settled. Ash nodded as they broke off. The scene was interrupted by the sound of flapping wings above their heads. They looked up and saw a tiny bird Pokemon fly above them and land about 50 feet away. It was slightly plump and had a brown-colored belly and cream-colored stomach. It had a pink beak and pink talons. A couple of others came and landed by it. Oh, Pidgey! Ash exclaimed in excitement as he and Serena pulled out their Pokedexes to scan it. Pidgey, the tiny bird Pokemon. Pidgey is mild-mannered and gentle. It is a good way for beginning trainers to test their skills, the Pokedex said in their monotone robotic voices. Awesome! What do you say we catch one, Serena? Ash asked as he looked over at Serena. No, that's okay. I'd rather you try to catch a Pokemon first before I attempt to, Serena replied. Well, alright then. Ash shrugged as he turned towards the Pidgey again. Pikachu and Charmander looked on with interest. Ash pulled out his Pokeball and got a serious look on his face. He turned his Pokemon League hat backwards. Pokeball, go! He shouted as he threw it forward. The ball soared through the air towards Pidgey. The Pokemon saw the incoming Pokeball just before it connected. Ash smiled as the ball made a direct hit. It then released a red energy that sucked Pidgey inside before it landed on the ground. The Pokeball shook back and forth a few times before it opened back up and released Pidgey. Woo! Woo! Pidgey! Pidgey hooted before disappearing inside a bush. What? Ash questioned in confusion as Serena let out a sigh. Pokemon need to be battled and weakened before being captured. The Pokedex suddenly spoke up. Ash mentally kicked himself for forgetting something so basic. Pikachu couldn't help but snicker at its trainer for his naivety. Ash glared at Pikachu. Ha ha, Pikachu, I'm sure it's hilarious. Let's see you battle Pidgey, Ash challenged. Pika-Pee. Pikachu shook its head and it continued the snicker. It was enjoying this. Pika-Pee. Pikachu shook its head as it continued the snicker. It was enjoying this way too much. Alright, fine. Just you watch. I'll capture Pidgey by myself. Ash shouted as he pulled his blanket out of his backpack and marched towards the other Pidgey. Wait, Ash, I don't think that's such a good idea, Serena said worriedly, trying to stop him. It's alright, Serena. I'll be fine. Ash replied as he turned around and gave a reassuring smile. Serena nodded but was still concerned as she watched Ash turn back around to the Pidgey. As Ash approached one of the Pidgey, it turned around to look at him, giving him a curious expression. It wondered what Ash was going to do. Hi there, Ash said in a gentle tone so as not to startle the Pidgey. They continued to stare back and forth at each other for about 15 seconds, before Ash made his move. Pidgey began to struggle violently trying to break free, but Ash was holding on tight. Come on, Pidgey! Stop squirming! Ash grimaced. Soon, Ash felt something strange building up in the blanket. It kept building up until what looked like a huge gust of air came out of the blanket. It lifted both Ash and the blanket off the ground and threw them a short distance away. Pidgey had apparently used its gust attack. It then flew away. Are you alright, Ash? Serena exclaimed with worry as she and Charmander ran over and helped Ash back to his feet. Yeah. Ash responded a little dazed. Pikachu was now laughing hysterically. It couldn't believe that this kid thought he could just tackle a Pidgey with a blanket and get it like that. Ash sure could prove it with some good laughs. It was liking him more every minute. Man, this is harder than I thought, Ash muttered. There's gotta be something that will weaken it. Wait a minute, Ash. Where's your blanket? Serena asked. Oh, yeah. It flew out of my hands when that Pidgey used gust on me. Ash remembered as he began to look around. He then spotted the blanket a short distance away. It was clearly covering something. Whatever it was, it appeared to be around the same size and shape as a Pidgey. But something was telling Ash that it wasn't one. Ash walked over to the blanket and cautiously picked it up, uncovering what was underneath, and he gasped. Sure enough, as Ash expected, it wasn't a Pidgey. It was something much worse. A Spearow. Judging by its expression, the Spearow clearly was not happy. Boy, did he mess up. Serena took out her Pokedex and scanned the Spearow. Spearow, the tiny bird Pokemon. Unlike the gentle Pidgey, Spearow are very aggressive and have a ferocious temper, the Pokedex said. Ash, be careful, Serena warned. Pikachu was no longer laughing as it watched the scene with worry. It knew the type of danger that Ash was in right now. Ash began to back away very slowly, trying not to make any sudden movements. Spearow was keeping its angry expression and not taking its eyes off Ash. Just keep backing away slowly, Ash thought to himself. Then, to his great misfortune, his right foot caught a large rock, which caused him to stumble backwards and fall on his bottom. Ash's fall seemed to have set Spearow off like a time bomb. It gave a shriek, took flight, and immediately began to charge at Ash. Whoa! Ash cried as he threw the blanket over himself to be protected from Spearow. It reached Ash and began to mercilessly peck at him. Hey! Quit it, Spearow! That hurts! Ash yelled from underneath the blanket, grimacing from the pain. Oh no! We've got to help him! Serena gasped. He had helped her in the past. Now it was time she helped him. She then turned to Charmander. Charla, use your Ember attack on the Spearow! Charla then opened its mouth and shot out several tiny embers from its mouth. They made a direct hit. Spearow cried out from the pain. Then its attention shifted to Serena and Charla. Spearow! It screeched as it charged towards Serena and Charla instead. No! Ash cried as he threw off his blanket and began running as fast as he could move to them. Serena and Charla stood in fear. There wasn't enough time for Serena to call out an attack and have Charla obey before Spearow reached them. Serena screamed as she crouched and covered her body as best as she could with her arms to brace herself for the impact. Pikachu! Serena looked up to see Pikachu jump over her and release a thundershock at Spearow. It struck Spearow directly. Spearow screeched again as it was shocked and fell to the ground, clearly exhausted. Serena breathed a huge sigh of relief. Thank you, Pikachu. Are you okay, Serena? Ash asked as he reached for her. Yeah, I'm okay. But what about you, Ash? You suffered a lot of attacks from that Spearow, and you're bleeding. Serena gasped once she saw the trickles of blood coming from Ash. I'll be fine, Ash replied. It's nothing some disinfectant and a couple of bandages won't fix. I'm more worried about you. When I saw that Spearow charge you, I became so scared that you would get hurt. If you were hurt while I was around, I don't know what I would do. Serena felt a great rush of affection for Ash by what he said. He didn't care that he was hurt. He just wanted to make sure she was safe. I'm fine, Ash. Thank you. She smiled. Why don't we get you cleaned up before continuing on? I'll get the first aid kit my mom packed. Alright, thanks. Ash nodded before he turned to Pikachu. You were awesome, Pikachu. Thanks for helping Serena. Pika. Pika-Pee. Pikachu said as it smiled and nodded its head. Spearow! Spearow! The sudden cry of the Spearow brought everyone's attention back to it. It was continually crying out to all the surrounding trees in the field. The group froze. There was only one thing it could be doing. Oh no, it's calling for help! Ash gasped. Sure enough, a huge flock of Spearow came out of the trees and began making a beeline straight towards the group. Let's get out of here! We have to make a run for it! Ash yelled as he grabbed his backpack. Serena quickly grabbed her things as well. Then she, Ash, Pikachu, and Charla took off running as fast as they could. This is just great! Ash exclaimed as they continued running. We've only been trainers for a few hours, and we're already getting into trouble. Let's keep running. Maybe we can outrun them, Serena said hopefully. Ash looked behind him. He didn't count on it. The Spearow were gaining on them pretty fast. They passed by a few kinds of various Pokemon. All were stopping what they were doing to observe the scene with interest. Maybe there's some way we can lose them. There's gotta be some type of cover, Ash said desperately as they looked around. It was no good. They were on a completely open road. Ash, they're almost to us, Serena yelled. Ash turned around again, and sure enough, the Spearow were just behind them. Ash was quickly trying to think of something. He knew fighting was no good. There was no way that only 2 Pokemon could take on 100 or so angry Spearow that were chasing them. Pikachu and Charla were running a few yards behind Ash and Serena, so the Spearow reached them first. As soon as the Spearow reached them, they began to use their Peck attack relentlessly on the 2 Pokemon. They began to cry out from the pain. "Oh no! Charla, return!" Serena cried as she stopped and quickly reached for her Pokeball and returned the Pokemon. Ash knew Pikachu hated Pokeballs, so he knew that he had no choice but to fight his way through the Spearow to reach it. "Pikachu, I'm coming!" Ash yelled as he made a U-turn and dashed towards his distressed Pokemon. "Ja! Pikachu cried as it continued to be attacked. "Pikachu, I'm here!" Ash said as he reached for Pikachu and scooped it up in his arms. He then fought off a few of the Spearow that were beginning to attack him also. Then he and Serena resumed running. It wasn't much longer before Ash and Serena began to tire it out. They didn't know how much longer they could go on. The Spearow, on the other hand, still seemed fired up and ready to pursue the 2 for a long time. To make matters worse, they reached a dead end at a cliff. They were trapped. "What do we do now?" Serena exclaimed as she looked at Ash in panic, hoping at least he had some idea. Ash looked down below the cliff and saw a river below. It was a long shot, but he knew they had no other choice. Ash turned his cap and gave a resolute expression. "We have to jump," he said. "Are you serious?" Serena asked in disbelief. "Yeah, it's our only chance. Just hold on tight," Ash replied as he wrapped his arm around Serena's waist. Ash made sure he had a firm grip on Pikachu in his left arm and Serena in his right before shouting, "Okay, let's go!" Then they both jumped towards the water below. The Spearow watched, momentarily confused, but their vicious nature wasn't going to let them get away that easily. They decided to wait and use their keen eyes to see if the humans would resurface. Then they would continue their pursuit. Ash and Serena landed in the water pretty hard, but it wasn't too painful. Ash let go of Serena and began to swim to the best of his ability, despite his injuries and Pikachu in one of his arms. Serena was doing the same. They passed by various fish Pokemon as they continued the swim to the surface, but their clothes became tangled around something, a line of some sort. A young girl was fishing by the river. Her day had been fairly uneventful so far. Needless to say, she was pretty bored. Her name was Misty Waterflower, and she was 10 years old. She had red hair that was tied into a side ponytail and blue eyes. She wore a yellow t-shirt, blue jean shorts with red straps that went over the shirt, and red tennis shoes. She was from Cerulean City, but currently was not living there due to family issues. Instead, she was just traveling by herself in the hopes to prove herself to her family. Misty let out a sigh. "I'm so bored right now. I wish I could catch something." Just then, right on cue, she felt a tug on her fishing rod. Judging by how hard the tug was, it felt like a big one. "Oh shoot, I may have actually hit the jackpot on this one," Misty exclaimed as she pulled with all her might. To her surprise, it wasn't a Pokemon that soared out of the water. It was instead 2 kids, a boy and a girl. "Aw, it was just some kids," Misty mumbled in disappointment. Her face then lit up when she saw a Pikachu in the boy's arms. She ran up to them. "Oh, and a Pokemon. Are you okay?" "Yeah, we're fine, thanks," Ash said, panting. He then felt a slap go across his cheek. He looked up at the stranger in surprise. What did she do that for? "Not you, the Pokemon. Look what you've done to it," Misty shouted. "We didn't do this to it," Ash said defensively. Serena's face turned red from anger. This was some nerve this girl had. It was fine that this girl was worried about Pikachu, but it wouldn't hurt if she was concerned about her and Ash's well-being too. And she was even accusing them of hurting Pikachu. Not to mention, Serena thought the slap she gave Ash was pretty uncalled for. If Serena wasn't so tired, she would probably go in the total sass mode right now with this girl. "Then how could you let it get hurt like that?" Misty shouted again. Ash felt he had no need or the time to explain themselves to this girl who had done nothing but shout at them so far. He was getting a little irritated himself and just wanted to get away fast. "That doesn't matter right now. What matters is getting my Pikachu somewhere safe. Do you know where I can take it?" Ash wondered. Well, you're in luck. There's a Pokemon Center in Viridian City a few miles from here. You can heal your Pikachu there. She told them, pointing in the direction to Viridian City. Great, thanks, Ash nodded. He was about to take off, but something caught his eye. It was a bicycle. Perfect. Hey, Serena, we can use this bike, Ash said, gesturing to it. Hey, you can't use that. That's my bike, Misty exclaimed. Everyone then heard the sound of screeching and wing flopping again. They turned around to see the flock of Spearow again. Ash and Serena couldn't believe it. These Spearow were still chasing them. Man, these guys are persistent, Ash cried in disbelief. We gotta go. He then ran towards the bike and put Pikachu in the basket and hopped on himself. Luckily, the bicycle had a pair of pegs on it, so Serena could ride as well. She got onto them and grasped her hands tightly on Ash's shoulders to keep her balance. She felt no qualms about borrowing this girl's bike because of the way she treated them. Hey, where do you think you're going? Misty called out as they sped off. We'll give it back someday, Ash shouted over his shoulder. Misty seethed as they disappeared from view. How dare they take her bike without her permission? She would make sure she would meet those two again, and her bike better still be in good condition too. As Misty watched the Spearow fly overhead, she could also tell a storm was coming in. She would need to find shelter pretty quickly. She did secretly hope that those two kids and their Pikachu could make it to Viridian City safely. Ash was pedaling as hard as he could along the path. After fleeing from the Spearow for so long, Ash was becoming extremely tired. Don't worry, Pikachu. We'll be in Viridian City in no time. Then we can heal both you and Serena's Charmander. Pikachu gave a weak nod before it felt drips of water on its face. It was beginning to rain. You've gotta be kidding me. You've gotta be kidding me, Ash exclaimed as it began pouring rain. Now that it was raining, it was becoming very hard for Serena to stay on the pegs. They were becoming slippery, which was causing her to lose her balance. She gave a death grip on Ash's shoulders trying to stay on. Ash grimaced at the pain, but he didn't care. They had to make it to Viridian City. Ash, I'm losing my balance, Serena cried as she began to slip. Just hold on, Serena! You can't fall! Ash yelled as he turned around. Unfortunately for them, because Ash had turned around, he didn't see the drop ahead of them. They rode straight off the ledge and tumbled on the ground 8 feet below. The bike landed hard. The impact caused all of the bike's passengers to fly off the bike and onto the ground in pain. The bike bounced again and landed a short distance away. Ash was momentarily dazed, but he soon came to and saw Serena and Pikachu a few yards away on their backs. They were in obvious pain. No, Serena, Pikachu, this can't happen, he said weakly. The huge tumble the trio took was all the Spearow needed to catch back up to them. They hovered in the air behind them and screeched as thunder cracked behind them. Ash had now had enough and got a determined look on his face. He had made a promise to Serena's mother to look after her, and he promised to protect Pikachu. He had failed in that, but there was something he could still do to make sure they could get away. Serena, listen to me, Ash said as he shakily stood up. Serena following suit. I want you to take Pikachu and run. Don't stop until you get to Viridian City. I'll hold off the Spearow. Ash, are you crazy? Those Spearow could seriously kill you, Serena exclaimed. I don't care. You guys are really important to me, and there's no way I'm going to let any of you get hurt because of me, Ash said firmly before he turned to Pikachu. Pikachu, I'm so sorry I failed you as a trainer. I swore to keep you safe from danger, and I couldn't even keep that promise for one day. I understand if you never want to see me again. I still want you to do one last thing for me, Ash said as he brought out a forbidden device. I need you to get inside your Pokeball. Pikachu shook its head slowly. I know you're scared, but if you get inside the Pokeball and go with Serena, I know that you two will be safe, and that's good enough for me, Ash said as he set the Pokeball next to Pikachu. Ash then turned around and slowly approached the flock of Spearow, grimacing from the amount of pain he was in. No, Ash! Ash heard Serena yell behind him, but he ignored it. Ash then stopped a short distance away from the Spearow and spread out his arms defiantly. There was no way he was letting them get any farther. Spearow! Do you know who I am? I am Ash Ketchum from the town of Pallet. I'm destined to be the world's greatest Pokemon trainer. I can't be defeated by the likes of you, he shouted. Ash then turned his back to Serena and Pikachu. Go on, you guys need to get out of here. Hurry! Seeing they weren't moving, he then yelled, Go! Before turning around to face the Spearow again. I'm going to capture and defeat every last one of you. Do you hear me? He yelled at Spearow. Pikachu raised its head off the ground and watched Ash with amazement. It had never had a trainer like Ash before. Ash was definitely the type of trainer Pikachu was looking for. Ash had proven he would risk his own life for Pikachu, and that really touched it. It was then Pikachu decided it would remain by Ash's side until the very end. Come and get me! Ash hollered as lightning flashed. The flock of Spearow then gave a mighty shriek and dive bombed straight for Ash. Serena stood still as she watched helplessly. Ash had told her that as long as she and Pikachu was safe, he would be fine. That wasn't fine for Serena though. Ash had always been there for her in the past to help her. There was no way on earth she was going to abandon Ash like this. She will not. She then got a determined look on her face. She was sick of being the damsel in distress. It may be raining, she may be injured, and Charla may be too weak to fight, but that doesn't mean she couldn't do anything. Ash! She screamed as she ran towards him as fast as she could. The Spearow continued the charge. Ash didn't care. He stood defiantly with arms out. Serena continued to run forward. She was determined to get her crush out of the way, even if she put herself in danger. To her surprise, she saw a small creature run past her. It was Pikachu. Pikachu continued to run forward. It ran up Ash's backside, then onto his shoulder. Ash didn't even have time to cry out in surprise before Pikachu leaped off his shoulder and into the air. While it was in the air, a lightning bolt struck Pikachu, giving it a supercharge. Ash and Serena watched in amazement. Ash groaned as he regained consciousness. He could tell he had been out for a while, as the thunderstorm was now gone, replaced by sunshine. The Spearow were nowhere to be seen either. Ash let out a sigh of relief, but he soon let out a gasp as he remembered Serena and Pikachu. Pushing himself up with hands and looking around, he saw both them lying on their backs a short distance away. Serena! Pikachu! He cried as he crawled over to them and began to gently shake them. Are you guys okay? Pikachu was the first to regain consciousness. Chew, it said tiredly. Hey Pikachu, that was an incredibly amazing attack. Are you alright? Ash asked. Pikachu weakly nodded its head back and forth. It was going to make it, but it still needed medical attention as quickly as possible. Ash turned at the voice and saw Serena slowly sitting up. Serena, are you alright? Ash said as he gently picked up Pikachu and went over to her. Yeah, I'm fine, she said weakly. Then she began to cry. Serena, what's wrong? Ash asked. It's you, Serena said in between tears. You were being so reckless. The Spearow could have killed you. I know, Ash muttered and hung his head. But as long as you and Pikachu were safe, that was enough. No, it's not, Serena shouted and shook her head. Ash, whenever we agreed to travel together, we said we would look out for each other, not just you looking out for us. Serena, Ash trailed. He didn't know what to say. It's great that you care so much about us, Ash. That's just the kind of person you are. Serena continued, trying to dry her tears. But don't forget that we care a lot for you too. Me, Pikachu, Charla, we all do. I'm sorry, Ash said quietly. Serena finished wiping her tears and gave Ash a very tender look and took one of his hands in hers. You don't have to do this by yourself, Ash. Remember, we're all here for you. Remember the promise we made earlier? We're in this together until the end. You're right, Serena. Ash looked in his arms to see Pikachu slowly nodding its head, signifying it agreed with Serena. I promise, anything that happens to us, we will do together. No one will ever be left behind. Thank you, Ash, Serena said genuinely. She then felt her blush return and quickly turned away. Anyway, we should go ahead and get to Viridian City. We have to get Pikachu and Charlotte to the Pokemon Center. Had Serena been looking, she would have seen Ash's cheeks slightly red also. She then began to stand up, but something got her attention as she looked up into the sky. Ash, what's that? Serena asked as her eyes widened at a huge Pokemon flying above them. It looked so majestic and glowed the 7 colors of the rainbow. Whoa. Ash muttered as he and Pikachu also looked in amazement. There's no data. There are still Pokemon that have yet to be discovered, the Pokedex suddenly said from Ash's pocket. Ash and Serena continued to watch the large Pokemon as it continued to fly. It soon disappeared over the horizon. Ash and Serena looked at each other and smiled. They couldn't believe they had just seen a new Pokemon like that, and on their first day. They began to walk toward Viridian City, and it wasn't long before they saw it in the distance. They would be there in just a little bit. Ash felt a small lick on his cheek. He looked down and saw it was Pikachu that did it. Ash's heart warmed considerably at the affectionate gesture from Pikachu. He had earned its trust. As they began to continue towards Viridian City, Ash and Serena knew they would have a long road ahead of them. They knew after today that their path would be filled with many dangers, but also many happy times. They would meet unforgettable people and Pokemon alike. No matter what happened though, they knew as long as they had each other and their Pokemon, there was no obstacle that they couldn't overcome.